Well, hey everyone. Welcome back to the Redeem Her Time podcast. We're going to be talking today about all things automations, systems, and SOPs. Who is here because you want to scale your time and the return on your time? We call it ROTI around here, ROTI. As business owners, we only have so much time. And so we want to be faithful and fruitful with the way that we're using our time. And so I'm excited that Brittni Schroeder is with us today because she has got some things to share as she is not only doing this herself, but also helping other people to do this as well. So, Brittni, welcome to the show. Let's start off by just a little bit about you. I'd love to hear kind of what does the season of life hold? Maybe what are some things you're juggling outside of the work you do? What's God calling you to right now?
Oh, okay. Well, let me just set the stage and just a little bit about me, and then we'll get to that. I um was a stay-at-home mom, and I graduated from college, and I stayed at home, and then I started like blogging, and I wanted to learn how to take pictures, so I became a photographer. So that was kind of the beginning of my entrepreneur journey. I had little kids at the time, two little kids. And I started, taking classes and learning and I just was self-taught. And then, people start asking you to take pictures. And then I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to do this as a business. And that's kind of where my entrepreneur journey like began. Um, then I think the creative side was something I had to work a little bit more at. The business part came more naturally to me. I'm very analytic, very organized, very structured, very disciplined. And I did that for a lot of years, like 10 years. And I did high school senior photography. And I did feel like it was a calling from God. Like I really felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm a builder of people. I love working, especially with teenagers. And, I just felt like this is where I need to be. And I also, at the time, I owned a photography magazine as well. And I was teaching and educating and doing all of the things. Um, and around and alongside that, I was also doing a lot of nonprofit work. Like I always have loved like serving. I think it's like a huge part of like just who I am. It comes innately to me. I do love to serve, but I also love to get involved. And even when my kids were little, like we would do Meals on Wheels and I would load up the stroller and take them and deliver food to the elderly and stuff like that. But then I was, getting involved in the community, and I was working in probably like the most life-changing was I was involved with a nonprofit that educated kids in Haiti. And so
Mm.
I was going to Haiti at the time. I was a photographer, and that's kind of what got me there is, hey, will you come and take pictures of these kids in Haiti? We're opening a school. And I was like, yes, sign me up. So I went there, and I felt like, again, I felt like, oh my gosh, this is where God wants me to be. This is where I'm supposed to be. I felt it was very like very inspirational. I felt like so many spiritual experiences. Like it was an amazing experience. Um, so I did that for a lot of years. In 2017, my 14-year-old son passed away. And at that time, again, I kind of went back to, I saw these kids struggling. He was in high school. He was a wrestler. He was GT, gifted and talented. So he was friends with the athletes, friends with the academics, and just very social. And these kids were like coming to our home. And again, I went back to we need to teach them to serve. And so I started a nonprofit in 2017 called the Compassion Foundation, the Gage Schroeder Compassion Foundation, or the Compassion Club. And we created a curriculum, and that was kind of at the time that was like my passion project and my healing. And I was speaking at schools, and we have clubs all over the US. And so that again, kind of back to just like serving. One of my favorite quotes from Tony Robbins is we only suffer when we are thinking of ourselves, and when we can, get our outside of ourselves and serve others, like it's so healing. And so I did that for I still have that. I still, at the time I was a little bit more after my son died, I totally put everything into it. And it's kind of gone a little bit on the back burner now. But around that same time, I had, my husband at the time, I'm divorced, but he lost his job. And so we moved to Houston. Again, we were in El Paso, Texas, moved to Houston. And at that time, I was like, should I keep doing photography? But I'm like, this is a good time to pivot. Backing up a little bit before that, as I'm helping all these teenagers with my nonprofit, somebody said to me, you should be a life coach. And I'm like, what is a life coach? That's so hokey. Bust out the crystals. But I started listening to these podcasts and I got certified as a life coach. And that was like, again, one of those things where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to help people. Like, this is where I'm supposed to be. And then during that, then my ex at the time lost a job. We moved to Houston. I was like, you know, it's time to pivot. And I wanted something where I could work anywhere. I didn't want to start another location-based business. And I was actually helping all these other life coaches like get their businesses up and going and organized. And so um, then that's when I pivoted to business and marketing. And then we were in Houston for 5 years. I did get divorced, moved to Utah. So now I'm in Utah. So that is kind of where it gets me here. And again, very hard getting divorced. But again, I know I'm exactly where God wants me to be. I have, my son that passed away in 2017, but I also have a 21-year-old son, and he is serving a mission for our church in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And he's been there for 2 years and he is coming home in 6 days. So he has
Oh
been
my
gone
goodness.
here. So we are like the countdown, 6 days until I can hug my baby again. And then I have a 17-year-old daughter. So that is kind of me. So what's on my mind is that my son's coming home in 6 days. So
Yay.
I'm pretty excited about that. So
Yeah, I would be too. And it's just so interesting, like just listening to your story, your journey, and how God took you, through different iterations in your family and different things happening on, in your business and all of that. And that, just like we just trust as we don't know where each step is going to take us. And also when you have the unexpected, like you've experienced as well. And
yeah.
when we walk with the Lord, then we can trust that we can keep following him and he's going to put us, like you said, right where we're supposed to be, which I love, and I love that you're doing that. So yeah, so tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing. I shared with you earlier, my audience are business owners, we're women, so we wear lots of hats and we play lots of roles and we're involved in our communities, and we also have this business that we want to grow and things like that. So tell us a little bit more about how you help women in business, and then we'll dive into some challenges we're running into right now.
So I help small business owners with it, mainly like a lot of like operations stuff. Like I look at your business and I say, how can we clean this up? Create automations, systems, funnels. We want our businesses to work on autopilot, right? We want to make money and have growth, but we need to have like these automation systems. We need to have strategy, but we have to have these automations and systems in our business before. So that's one of the things I do is I help, business owners create automation systems and funnels that run on autopilot. So that's kind of like my jam. That's what I do.
I
So
love it. I love it. And I love that you were probably doing that for your own business and then realized other people need this. So let's talk a little bit about this, because I think here's the thing when it comes to business. I mean, I would say most people in my audience probably didn't go to college for business. They probably didn't get a degree in that, but somewhere along the way we got bit by the business bug. And so then we jumped in, probably not knowing what we were doing. We don't know what we don't know. And then we're scouring the internet. And of course there's, all kinds of ideas and things that we feel like we need to do because of that. Our businesses can get really messy when we're trying to kind of maybe piecemeal or duct tape everything together and stuff like that. So what are you seeing? Like when somebody comes to you, like maybe kind of like, what are you seeing on the back end of things? Like how are things messy? How maybe have we been, told that this is something we should be doing, but really it's, not probably as efficient or effective as we should be? Like kind of what's the problem that a lot of business owners are experiencing around, automations and systems and stuff like that?
Well, I think one of the things, it's a couple. There's a bunch of different things. A couple things. You have to be able to pivot. And so I teach automation systems and funnels, and those are so important to have, especially if you want to scale. But the part that people I think really struggle with is I can build these things for you, but you have to have traffic. You have to have leads. You have to have people who are interested in your business. And we have to be able to pivot. So for a long time, including myself, social media, Instagram, that was like my bread and butter. Like I was getting a ton of business. People were seeing my stuff. They were, opting in for my freebies and that. Then we saw a shift where now it's not working as well, and but people are like, don't know what to do. Where do we spend our time? And we have to be
Mhm.
able to pivot and try new things. And those new things might not be online. Those new things might be like, you know what? You need to try to speak at something. You need to try to go to networking events. You might try like SEO, Chat GPT is kind of a thing now too. And so we're kind of like seeing people are going to Chat GPT to find answers. We might need to optimize for AI in our business. So you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to change with the times. What worked at one point might not work now,
Mm.
and you have to be able to adapt to that. So I think it's just, the days of, there used to be a time where people could say, hey, sign up for my weekly newsletter list. Okay, that doesn't work anymore. You
Right. Who
have
wants
to
another
have,
newsletter in their inbox, right? They're
yeah,
already
you have to
overflowing.
have a resource. So
Yeah.
now it's like we have to have like a freebie or something that they need. What is a free resource that they need that they can sign up for? Now it's kind of like you'd be able to post on social media and people would leave a comment, engage, go to the link in your bio. And now that's not working. So we have to be able to say, okay, this isn't working. I need to try something new. And you have to be okay with failing and trying something new. And what works for one person might not work for another person. But that's a part of the puzzle. But you do have to have the systems and automations in place because your business needs to run and you can't do it all. And especially
Yeah.
with AI now, it's if you're not implementing AI in your business, you will not be able to compete with your competition because we are becoming which is unfortunate, but it's a very fast-paced world, fast-paced industry. You have to stay on top of things. And it can't just be posting once and then hoping people do it. You have to just keep over and over and asking, making offers, doing all the things. You have to drive traffic constantly, be growing in different ways. So
Yeah, yeah, and so vital. And what I hear is the pools that we're fishing in. So thinking about like I've got my lines in several different places may look a little bit different. But what I'm also hearing is if I don't have then the back end automations and systems and funnels when those people come in, then I just wasted all that time essentially,
yeah.
and because they're not going to be, I'm not going to be able to move them through the process to really figure out if we're going to be a fit, or not. So where do you see that people's back end automation systems and funnels are falling apart? So let's just pretend that they found, the fishing hole that's really working well for them, or the two or three that are working, because we know it's not just one, right? And so like, what are you seeing when people come to you with that back end stuff? Where is that maybe a little bit messy or disorganized or not really as efficient or effective as it could be?
Yeah. Well, there's three like sales funnels or funnels that every small business needs. So the first one is going to be like your lead generation funnel. And
Okay.
this is where you have a lead magnet, a freebie or whatever. And you need that to get leads. That's to get people inside your email, inside your funnels. And so that can be a checklist, it can be a training, it can be, a template, it can be anything that's like a download. It can be a webinar, where you're doing a free training. So you have to do those lead generation things. So you're getting new leads in. So that is the one funnel that you need to do. And that includes, you have to have a landing page where you get their email, and then you're going to have an email nurture sequence, and then you're going to add them to your weekly newsletter list and get them inside that funnel. So that's the one funnel that you need. With that being said, you should have multiple lead magnets. I encourage, my clients, the members in my membership, hey, once a quarter, you got to come up with something different because that's what marketing is, testing and seeing what's working, what's not, trying new things, staying on top of the trends, all of those things. So that's the first funnel that you have to have. The second one is a sales funnel,
Okay.
and that is when you're selling. So for example, I might have an offer that is a course, for example, right? I'm going to do like a sales funnel. So I like to do, depending on what my offer is, but that's a little bit more of so like I have a digital course called, um, you know, uh, email funnel builders, where I'm teaching people to build email funnels. So I might do a webinar and I'm talking about maybe building funnels or growing your email list, something that has to do with that. Then at the end of the webinar, I'm going to sell. Like I'm going to say, okay, now like join this course and blah, blah, blah. Then once I've got their email, they've gone to the webinar, then I need to have a series of emails where I'm selling them, trying to sell the product. I'm giving testimonials, I'm doing storytelling, I'm talking about how this is going to save them time and money, all of those things, and I'm selling to them. And that is a sales funnel. So I have a sales funnel for that. I have a sales funnel for, I have my business membership. I have a sales funnel, like I have templates, so I'm trying to sell these products through this sales funnel, right? So those are the two. So we have lead gen and sales funnel. So the third and last one, and I think this one is the most important, but it's not necessarily a huge revenue. Well, it is a revenue because you'll hear, because it's the client experience.
Mm.
And so we have to have this post-purchase sales funnel where it is once somebody purchases from you, they go into a series of emails where you are welcoming them. So the first one would be maybe like for me, my very first one is welcome to my program or whatever it may be. Here's an intake form. Can you fill this out so I can see where you're at, what your goals are? Then the next email will be like, this is how you work with me. Like you can download Marco Polo or Boxer, you can access me, and I'm kind of telling them how it works. And then I will give them access to maybe a program or a resource that I have. And then I'm checking in, and when I work with people, it's usually like 3 months, or well, I'll do like a month, 1 to 3 months. And so I have a series of emails that is going out that's talking to them. Then I'm like trying to upsell them at the end, like, hey, do you want to sign up for, this, or downsell them? Hey, if you don't think that you need more one-on-one coaching, here's another offer. Here's another option. You can join my membership and get, just support. So like, small, like support here and there. Then the next email I'm going to send is, hey, I would love a review on Google, here. So that's another example. So those are the three funnels that every business needs. So it's the lead generation funnel, a sales funnel where you're selling, and then an onboarding client experience funnel.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I love that. Like, how are we bringing people in? How do we actually then, then get them to the point where they're saying, yes, I want to work with you. And then I think it's really smart. The client experience one is actually the most valuable one. I think everybody puts all their time and money into the new leads, and those are important. But if we can keep the people who are already know, like, trust us, already, working with us, if we can keep, having something for them to, to be able to work with us, then that keeps that lifetime customer value growing. And it's always easier, right, to sell to somebody who already is in one of our things than somebody who we're just getting to know.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what do you think is the bad advice that's out there? I mean, like, again, we could literally, and so many business owners, I call them busyness owners, who are on a hamster wheel of doing but not really producing. A lot of them are out there consuming a lot of free trainings, a lot of free webinars, they're even maybe buying some programs and things. And so I'm guessing that you've probably run across some things that you're like, yeah, no, that's actually not what you want. So like, what might be some like not good advice that you've run into that you would want to caution our listeners to, and then what would you say instead of that? Like what? Yeah.
Well, I think I'm a realist, and I think one of the things that I am because I like to be very honest, I'm a realist and have integrity. If something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Like there's no easy button in business. And I see so much clickbait stuff out there where it's like, I can make you so much money in, like I can make you $10,000 in 30 days. Like, can it be done? Yes, but it is not, it's, there's no easy way to do it. You have to build a business. Like I can look at somebody else's business. I can look at my own business and say, okay, I'm working, when I first started, I was working a lot of hours. I can say, hey, listen, I'm making 6 figures and I'm working 20-hour work weeks. Okay, if I'm saying that, I wasn't working 20, like my business does not look the way that it does because I have been working 20-hour work weeks. I put in a lot of times. Like people will hire me and say, I want my business to look like your business. And I'll say, it took me 15 years to build this business.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It takes
You can't
time.
you can't compare your beginning to somebody else's middle. And I also think another thing is what works for one person doesn't always work for another person. I am very extroverted. I am very social. I love to public speak. I'm fine getting on social media. For somebody to like say, I'm going to do everything she does, it doesn't always translate. And you have to remember that. Like, focus on what you're good at, like find something that you're passionate about. Maybe it's writing, maybe it's talking and you want a podcast. Find something that you're good at. And just remember, like, we all are very individual. We all have very individual journeys. And so find what you're doing and like trust that it will work out if you're doing the things that, obviously, I believe in mindset, but you cannot think your way to $1 million. You have
Right.
to take action, but you have to figure it out on your own. So I think just be mindful of that. I am a consumer of information. I love courses. I love learning, but at a certain point, it's like you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
You have to do it. If you can find a mentor or you can find a coach that will teach you these things, like, oh, that's such a blessing. It really, really is. And I've had some great mentors. So I am not saying don't get a coach, because I definitely believe in investing and learning from somebody or hiring people to do things that they're good at. Um, but you have to put in the work. At the end of the day, you can hire out, you can do a lot of things, outsource a lot of things, but you are your brand and you have to put in the time, the work, building relationships. You have to do all those things.
Yeah. And I think even in this automated world, this AI world where we can, get our hands on information all the time, it's that personal connection. It's I feel like I know you, right? That I think really draws people in to want to take a next step, because like you feel authentic, right? And people can tell when you're just trying to copy and paste what else you've seen on the internet, and be, like you said, somebody else, versus just being inspired. Like, wow, I love how she's always, talking about her faith. Or I love how, she's always, like making sure that she's telling about like how she's making time for family or whatever that is, like, to make it really genuine, authentic, to who you are and what God's called you to.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I'd be curious, right? Because, as believers, like we don't necessarily have to be talking about the Lord in everything we do. And yet I think it really does and hopefully should shape the decisions we make, the way that we use our time and things like that. So I would just love to hear, I mean, you've been in business for a while and you've done a lot of different iterations and stuff like that. Like, in what ways has your faith really helped to guide or shape the way that you do business? And just, if you have any things that you want to share about just what role that plays, I think that'd be really neat to hear.
I mean, I think my word for 2026 is trust, like trust
Love
in
it.
God,
Yeah.
trust in myself, all those things. But I think, like, one of the things, there's been several times in my life, in my business, where I'm like, gosh, I'm struggling, things are not working, what's going on? And I think just taking a time to step back and just say, like, I need to serve. Like, I need to be a disciple of Christ. Like, I need to serve, I remember one time I had this client and she was so frustrated and she's like, I'm doing all these things, and nothing's happened. And she's like, tell me what to do. And I just said, you know what? Just take a step back, take the day off, like, go serve, go do something for somebody else, and sometimes I think we have to just take a deep breath, trust, we have to put in the time, we have to do the work, obviously, but it's also just like, sometimes we just have to, like, keep a perspective of the big picture,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's probably my
Yeah, and
advice.
aren't we in business so that we have the ability to have the time and money to invest in, the people and things that matter, not just in our homes, but also, in our
Yeah.
communities and stuff like that? I feel like we're not in business to work 24/7 and, feel good about the income that comes in, but to be able to have the overflow that we can pour out. So I love that advice on there. So yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for challenging us, for sharing your story, and all of that. I know, obviously, the learning that happens in business is not going away. There's always, like you said, opportunities and needs to do a little bit of pivoting. And yet there are the timeless things that we need to have in place, like the funnels that you talked with us about. So, if somebody is like, okay, I'm ready, I really want to see things, move forward, what would just be like one piece of advice that you would give to someone? And maybe it's what you just gave this woman, maybe that's what it is, to really help her, like, start not only, putting her time in the right things in her business, but also seeing results from it.
Yeah. I think just being consistent, I think,
Mm.
is being consistent and being open to failure. And
Okay.
don't consider it like failure, consider it like a learning. We're constantly learning.
Yeah.
And just take a step back and say, okay, what did I learn? How can I do this better? What can I do differently? And
Yeah.
I think being humble enough to say, what can I do better? What can I do different? Like, really, it really takes you a long way.
Yeah, it's
So.
that curiosity, right? Not judging ourselves or shaming ourselves or comparing ourselves, but just noticing and then asking some of those
Yeah.
questions, I think is really, really good. Well, thank you. There's a lot to learn in business, and I love having others who are along the journey or further along the journey. So I know that you're going to be a great resource to people. So if someone's listening today and they're like, "Hey, I love what Brittni's all about. I'd love to, get into your world a little bit more." What would be a good next step? What would be like you'd say? Where would you send them next?
Yeah, I mean, you can reach out to me on Instagram at brittni.schroeder. You can also, my website's brittnischroeder.com. I'm pretty much everywhere at Brittni Schroeder. So I'm easy to find. So, but yeah, reach out to me, send me a message, or let's jump on a call and see how I can help you and look at your business and see what we can do.
Yeah, and you've got a podcast too, so permission to pitch that so we can go and find it.
Yeah, and I have a podcast called Redefine Your Business. So check those out. So.
Perfect. We'll make sure that we link that in the chat because there is so much to learn, and I love having people like you in my ear when I'm wanting to grow and things like that. So what we're going to do is take the conversation off the podcast into the community where we can actually get in real time and ask questions and think about how are we going to do some of these things. And I love your challenge to serve. And so I always like to ask a question based on the episode. And so I think that's going to be our question is just like, in what way can you go and serve, whether it feels connected to your business directly or whether it doesn't? Like I love, Brittni, how you've just modeled what that looks like and how sometimes when we hit those frustration points in business, we do just need to get out of our own space and realize that there is a whole lot more outside of, of just the world that sometimes we feel like we're boxed into as business owners. And so I'd love to hear from you guys. Where are you serving, or where's a place where you can, start investing some time to give back? And let's see what the Lord does with that, even in our businesses. So if you're not a member of the community yet, come on over into the Redeem Her Time community. We'll link it in the show notes, or you can go to redeemhertime.com/community. So I know your son is coming home in 6 days. We're recording this in February. So by the time everybody hears this, he will already be home. So I want to ask this question. I want you to think about this mid-March when this is coming out. One of my signature things that I teach people is number one, you do have time, because everybody says, I don't have time if I had time, right? The next question is, and what is it time for? So if you were answering that question, here we are, the middle to end of March, right? And about to head into this Q2 season. What is it time for? Whether it's in your life or in your business, what do you want to do?
It'll just be time just to spend time with my kids. So I haven't seen him for 2 years. And so I'm sure it will just be time just to reconnect.
I love it. Well, that will be a good time well invested. And I hope you enjoy that time together and get to hear lots of stories about his time away. So, well, thanks so much, Brittni, for being with us today. We appreciate you, and we'll get this out.
Okay, thank you.